Welcome to another session of Stelmo's Rants and Raves. I'm Stelmo. Let's just jump right in here. So, here we are, another day. Yesterday, we allegedly hit a couple Iranian sites after they fired at a commercial vessel in the Strait of Hormuz. And then here this morning, we read here, I'll read the headline. It says, and this is coming from Fox. Bahrain said it was targeted by Iranian drone attack in blatant violation of its sovereignty. So we're entering a new era now where I just don't know the correct definition of ceasefire. I mean, I've always believed it meant that you stop firing at each other. And yet we've had a ceasefire now for a very long time. And yet the firing keeps going on. It keeps going on. And again, I'm going to keep saying it until I'm blue in the face. Even though I support Donald Trump, this is Donald Trump's fault. He should have never, uh, he should have never entered into any ceasefire with people who, these are religious zealots. Their religion tells them, hey, it's okay to lie to the infidel to get your platform through. And what is their platform? It is to force the infidel to either accept Islam as their religion or join the line of people who are at the mortician's offices where they're going to need their services. And so I just, it's a make believe ceasefire is what it is. The president wants out of the war, and he's now surrendering. As far as I'm concerned, he is surrendering. And from here, it's not going to get any better. It's only going to progressively get worse. Yes, I will admit that gas prices have come down recently, and the price of oil has come down. But I don't think anybody can say with any degree of certainty exactly what is causing this because we have multiple factors at play. And certainly one of those factors is the economy. They've been gaslighting us about the economy for months now. The sad reality is we are still seeing or living through the aftermath of the Biden administration. And the big problem, and I've said it before and I'll keep saying it, the president took credit for what turns out to be phony numbers. And now, sadly, he owns the economy. Perhaps, and I don't necessarily blame the president that much for this. I blame his advisors. And where are all of these Republican pundits? The reality is we have lost the war. We really have. We've lost our country, and it's just a matter of time till we see the final acts playing out. And why do I say that? Well, I live in Florida, which is, as everybody should know, a very red state. And I live in a very red county in that red state. And increasingly, I am going out into public establishments where nobody speaks English. Or if there is somebody speaking English, they're not readily available. The first time I had it, I was just absolutely shocked. It was a CVS drugstore. And the clerk spoke fluent Spanish. The only problem was she didn't speak any English. So she wasn't very helpful. And, a second time I was with a friend in Walmart. And he was looking for something. And, when you look something up on the Walmart app, it tells you what aisle and everything. So it was a short aisle. And he didn't see it anywhere. So he thought, hey, well, I'll ask a clerk. Perhaps if she spoke English or understood English, maybe she could help them. I don't know. The fact is, she didn't. And more and more, you know, our local mainstream news station, which is certainly liberal leaning on progressive, and the reporters now are all people with Hispanic names. And generally speaking, and I know I'm painting with a wide brush here, but generally speaking, when your first name is also in Spanish, that's a very good indication as to how long they've been here. And what we're seeing now is the children of a lot of these illegals are now entering into the workforce. And most of them, fortunately, are bilingual. They were forced to learn English in school. And of course, they speak Spanish at home. And they're furthering the immigrant cause as they go out there. And this is not going it's just not going to bode well. And of course, the president, for whatever reason, has drastically slowed down the removal of illegal aliens from our area. And more, when you go shopping, you're all subjected to Spanish, goods that have no English on the package or anything. It's all in Spanish. And so this doesn't bode well for this country. And unfortunately, the Republican Party, I believe, just hasn't done what they need to do. And somehow they think it's going to turn out all right. Let's just look at what's happening in the Democratic Party. It's imploding because you got the Socialist Party of America overtaking the people in the Democratic Party. And it's funny because this is how it happens. You know, in this case, leftist loons decide that they want to increase their base, or they invite certain minorities in, and it's just a matter of time to those minorities kick them out. So it's going to be interesting because I suggest that come next January, I think both Jeffries and Schumer are both going to lose their leadership positions, and they're going to lose them to radical leftists, socialist communists, call them what they are. And sadly, it's going to become more attractive to more Americans. Right now, it's certainly attractive to the lower classes here in America, which is why in the cities, we're seeing so many of these socialists being elected. They promise free stuff, and anybody with any education knows really nothing's free. Somewhere, somehow, somebody's paying for this stuff. But when you have nothing, it's attractive to you. And more people are joining these lower classes because of inflation. And at this point, I don't know what would work as a solution to the inflation. The the Fed's going to have an interesting time here because the Fed has two congressional mandates. On one hand, they're to monitor the jobs market and keep it safe and secure. And generally speaking, one of the ways they do that is lowering interest rates. But secondly, the Fed is required to monitor and keep inflation low. And of course, their target is 2%. I find that problematic in and by itself. Why do we need any inflation? Why can't we just stay at this level? Well, I know the reason why we can't, because we're living well above our means. and we're having to borrow ever increasingly large sums of money. And I suspect that the Fed and Treasury are holding a lot of our uh, debt because buyers, international buyers, have left the market somewhat, and our debt is just so voluminous. There just are not enough people to buy it all. And this again, as we go forward, this is going to progressively get worse. And why is that? Well, because inflation is going to continue. Right now, the Fed's favorite CPI data shows, inflation rising, going higher, and it's going to go higher. And I think this is part of the reason, the economic reasons are why the Trump administration is so adamant at pulling out of Iran. But they're only going to make a quagmire. I mean, I don't I don't know who's advising Donald Trump, or maybe nobody's advising him. Maybe this is just the way he sees it. But I certainly think this is wrong. I mean, I hope I'm proven wrong, but I don't think so. I think the Iranian situation is going to fester until it's finished off. And in this case, Trump's got a lot of blood on his hands. Trump Trump was the one who uh, came out publicly and asked the Iranians to take to the streets and protest and take back their government. And he said, if they start killing you, we'll have your back. They started killing. They're still killing. And Donald Trump, for whatever reason, has ignored them. That is something I can't figure out. I cannot figure out why they didn't get weapons to the people. 95%, 95 to 96% of the residents of Iran are not Muslims. And yet, for some odd reason, we want to keep the minority in power. I don't get it. I'm never going to get it. I think it's sad that the president, you know, I've said it before. I watch 2C TV when it comes to what's going on in Iran. I get the most accurate news there. And so I saw the size of the protest before the president come out and asked the people to take to the streets and take back their government. And then I saw the crowds, after he said that, and the crowds more than doubled. I mean, there was easily more than 1 million people out in the street in Tehran for several days there. That was until the killing started. And tens of thousands have been killed, and nobody knows the real count because it's all done under cover of darkness, and then they either incinerate or bury the bodies. And this isn't going to play out well. And I suspect it's not going to take long before China moves on Taiwan. They're looking at Donald Trump and they're saying, "Hey, this guy's all bluster. This guy's not going to do anything." And I just don't get how Donald Trump could think that what he's doing is somehow showing strength. He can talk all he wants about how he blew up the Navy, the Army, and their Marines, or whatever it is, but they still have rockets and missiles and drones, and they're still doing damage during an alleged ceasefire. Only nowadays, in a ceasefire, everybody fires. Crazy. It's bizarre. And the left has been the one trying to destroy our language for decades. And here we are on the right, we're helping them along, making words not have the meanings that they have had for decades. A ceasefire means you stop firing, and there has been really no ceasefire. The only thing that's happened is Donald Trump has decided he's got to pull out. And he thinks that making these outrageously wild threats are somehow going to be the thing to do it. Well, Mr. President, by now you should realize that these threats are meaningless. And I want to go back and I want to reiterate what is the problem here? Because there's a set problem. Actually, there's two problems. The first problem concerns the situation in Lebanon. And the problem child, so to speak, that we find in that area is Hezbollah and an arm of the Iranian government. And for whatever reason, probably because the president understands that they are the most troublesome uh, part over in that area, he decided to exclude them from the peace negotiations. And when Lebanon, the United States, and Israel entered into an agreement, Hezbollah said, well, we're not following that agreement. And so Hezbollah would then fire rockets into Israel, and Trump would get mad at Israel when they respond. Mr. President, elected officials' primary function is to protect the people. And they know that. They're playing you, Mr. President. See, that's the thing. Everyone in the world sees it. Yeah, maybe nobody says it around you because then you have a fit and you make even more wild and ridiculous threats. Well, I think you've played out the threat game. I don't think it's going to work anymore. People now see that you are what you want to be, the peace president, and a peace president is never going to work as long as there are these vile, terrible actors in the world, such as Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, and the list goes on. And so I don't know how you can expect there to be peace when the one, and again, Hezbollah is the one that has the big weaponry that they're firing on Israel. So why you would exclude them is baffling. And then in Iran, you decided to exclude the IRGC. Again, the sole party that has all this weaponry. So yeah, you get the civilian leader to say, yeah, we're entering into this agreement. But the IRGC is not part of the agreement, and they're not buying the agreement, and they want to control the Strait of Hormuz. And this is going to be a reoccurring problem. But what has happened, Mr. President? Let's talk about what is happening. You spent a lot of American dollars putting a blockade up. And again, the plan was you were going to strangle them financially, and then they would be forced to do what you wanted. And then lo and behold, you find out that's not going to work. But yet you're still trying. And so it's not surprising that the IRGC has fired a missile or drone or whatever it was into a ship in the Strait of Hormuz. Probably going to happen a few more times. Because the party that you need to be part of the peace or part of the ceasefire is the one who's doing the firing. I mean, that seems to me to be common sense. I don't know why the president has somehow lost lost track of his longtime positions. So, and of course, this makes me wonder what is going on behind the scenes. What is it that we don't know? Okay, I get the economic thing that the economies around the world are collapsing, and yet, I, interestingly, they're going to all blame the situation in Iran, when in fact it all started way before the Iranian war started. This is still a continuation of the Biden economic debacle. It's that simple. And I don't know how at this point it's going to get corrected because we just are spending. We have to get it in order, and we're not. The president's seeking another $80 billion because of the war in Iran. And, again, I find it problematic. Why can't the Republicans just do simple bills on simple topic? Why do they got to lump stuff together? Well, I get it because they think that stuff that otherwise wouldn't pass, they'd be able to get it passed by attaching it to something that's important. They need to stop that nonsense because they're getting nothing done. Nothing. I mean, when you look at what this Congress has done and compare it to other Congresses, I mean, they're like on the bottom of the floor. They have a hard time doing anything. And the reason is because the rhinos have put a wall up against the Trump administration's programs and platforms. That's simple. If John Thune wanted to get the Save America Act passed, he could do it. All he's got to do is say any Republican who doesn't vote for it's going to lose their committee assignments. They cherish those things, okay? These are the kind of tactics that the Democrats use to keep their people in line. Why can't the Republicans do it, especially for something so important as the Save America Act? Well, John Thune doesn't want it, and none of the other rhinos want it as well. And I think, I support the president in not signing anything until he gets the Save America Act and keep that up right until the November election. Trust me, that will force Democrats and some Republicans to change their position. But I doubt that'll happen because I don't know why, but our side always seems to surrender even when we have the power. So it's baffling to me, but it's a crazy world right now that we're living in. And there's this financial implosion going on. And what we're finding out is there were some of the most lax rules and regulations over some of these companies and now we're finding out that things that they represented weren't quite the same. Some of these private equity companies, the collateral that they allegedly hold is non-existent, or the collateral was pledged to borrow from multiple banks. And so, yeah, the bankruptcies have started, and this is going to filter throughout the whole economic system. You can't have as many billions and billions and billions of bad debt in a system and still expect the system to run smoothly. It's just not going to happen. And it's all by greed. We got the politicians, both parties, all they think about is opening their pockets for illicit gains. They don't care about the people. That's evident when you look at both what they have done and what they haven't done. And it's a shame. And so far, the people here in America have been compliant and quiet and sitting back. I don't know how much longer that's going to last, especially in these inner cities. But we're going to have to wait and see how it all plays out. And with that, it's just, again, another day in the Middle East where they're firing in the ceasefire, which uh, makes it some sort of conundrum that is hard to figure out how it's finally going to end. The only way it's successfully going to end is for the United States to take out the IRGC. And for whatever reason, Donald Trump no longer has the desire to complete what he started. And it's a shame. This is the same thing America does all the time. They start these wars and then they run the minute there's some headwinds. It's a shame. It's a shame. But don't expect our enemies to not take advantage of what they're seeing out there. And I think it's going to be a contentious end to the Trump presidency. And I hope I'm wrong. Like many things, I always hope that I can come back on here and say, you know what? Boy, was I fooled. But I don't think that's the case. Anyway, you all have a great day. Stay safe. It's a crazy world out there. Bye bye.